Good afternoon. Welcome to the Leadership Dialogues powered by the Sanger Leadership Center. My name is Michelle Austin, and I serve as Assistant Director of the Center. This speaker series is one of our favorite events every year, and we're so excited to kick off our series of Sanger Leadership Center events with this event this year. We bring together accomplished leaders from industry, nonprofit, and politics together with our Sanger and our Ross faculty. Today is going to be Dr. Sue Ashford. And we talk about topics that are really relevant both in practice and in research. And pairing those things together is really important that we can become better learners about the leadership research and become better managers and leaders. We're really excited to welcome our Ross alumni back for this edition of the Fireside Chat. So welcome, alumni. We also are joined today by our students in our community, so welcome students, welcome all of our Ross community today. I'm up here this afternoon and I have the honor of telling you who's joining us on stage today before they kick it off. So I want to welcome our moderator, Dr. Sue Ashford. Professor Ashford, thank you. Thank you. Professor Ashford is an award-winning scholar and professor. She is the Michael and Susan Jandernoa Professor of Management and Organizations here at Michigan Ross. She does a great deal of teaching. Right now she's teaching in our executive and our online MBA programs, as well as in our Michigan Ross Executive Education. She served in many leadership roles throughout her tenure here at Ross, including our former Senior Associate Dean. As a distinguished scholar and a recipient of multiple awards, including the inaugural Visionary Circle Research Grant of 2024, Sue's work has been featured in many of the top academic journals and influential media outlets. She's authored the book, The Power of Flexing, which you'll see in some of our hands of the giveaway, and this book captures strategies for personal growth. And then we have two of our Ross alumni from different backgrounds and levels of leadership joining us today with Sue. I'd like to welcome André Branch, who is currently the Senior Vice President and General Manager for MAC North America as part of Estee Lauder Cosmetics. Thank you. Prior to joining Estee Lauder, he's worked at a number of CPG companies, including Kraft Foods, Diageo, and L'Oreal. André holds his BA in economics from the University of Maryland, and he's received his Michigan Ross MBA here in 1999. Welcome. And then Jamie Epstein Rosen, welcome. Jamie is the former Director of Entertainment Brand Marketing for North America for Entertainment One Hasbro. Prior to Hasbro, she led marketing and live event teams all across several companies, ranging from Walmart, Turner Broadcasting, HBO, Disney, and Nickelodeon. Jamie is returning back to Ross. She has her BBA here from 2009. Thank you. Thank you for your warm welcome. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ashford, who's going to kick us off. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. That's okay. Thank you, Michelle, and welcome back. So glad to have you here with us, and I'm really excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is leadership and leadership development. And I know the people who have chosen to spend this time are interested in hearing your experiences as well. So I have several questions, and then there'll be a bit of a time. We got a little bit of a late start, but there'll be a bit of time at the end for questions from the audience, so you can be thinking about something you might want to ask. So our audience today includes both alumni and students. And I believe, and research suggests, that people can learn and grow at any age and stage, and they can use their experiences to grow their leadership. So first question is for you, André. I think you have talked with me about owning your leadership journey, which is a phrase that I really love. Can you explain what you mean by that and how you've leveraged resources, feedback, your experiences to be in charge of your leadership development?
Yeah, happy to do that. Owning your leadership journey for me is really about taking responsibility for your own development and progression along your career, both professionally and personally. I think what I've seen over my lifetime is when we come out of these kinds of institutions, we go into companies and we expect the company to be responsible for that. And I can tell you that even with the best intentions, the company cannot set you up for success over the long term. So you always have to be thinking about what's important to me personally, where do I want to go, what skills do I need to develop as a leader to get there. And so that's really what it's about, is assessing where you are, where are the gaps, how do you fill those things in. And there are tons and tons of resources available to you to be able to do that, especially today. Maybe it wasn't the case, decades ago, but everything is on YouTube, first and foremost. Companies have become, maybe I would call it a little bit lazy. You used to have many more formal training programs. Now they just have content that sits somewhere in a hard drive, and you have to go seek it out. But what I would say is that you do really need to seek those things out, and you need to think about, you have to be honest with yourself. I think there's a level of self-awareness and humility that comes along with leadership that says, I'm actually not good at this thing, and I need to get better at this thing. So being open to feedback, taking an assessment, a true assessment of the inventory of your skills, and trying to fill those gaps in along the way as you go is really important. And I think when you do that, you'll find with that intention that over time you just become better and better. And then the last thing I would say is that it's an infinite journey in terms of learning about leadership. It never stops. And you have to be okay with that. When we're in these big jobs coming out of our big school, things are changing all the time. And to stay on top of it and continuing to witness success requires that you are always thinking about, how do I become better in what I do?
Yeah, I love that. It's really the taking of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Also, many of our alums and the students to graduate are going to be going from job to job to job. So you really can't rely totally on a company anymore.
That's right.
Jamie, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Piggybacking off of that and taking charge of my personal leadership development, I can tell you that throughout my career, I've been hired into newly formed roles where there was no roadmap for how to get the job done. And sometimes even the job description would be out the window once I was in the door. And so it was on me to prove myself, to take charge and leverage my existing personal skill set and resources in the role. And so as a new leader, I had to use the opportunity to take matters into my own hands and lean on my previous experiences to figure out how not just get the job done, but help propel the company forward. And if they wanted me to just continue doing things the way it always had been done, then my role wouldn't have existed. So what can I do? Bring new ideas to the table. And one example is when I started at the Madison Square Garden Company, I was marketing live events for their family entertainment. And we had Sesame Street Live coming to one of our many venues, as it has in many years previously. And so I needed to figure out, how can we do something different this time to keep ticket sales up and make it exciting. And so I had an experiment that I used, and I said, let's have a brainstorm session with not just the marketing department and creative team. Let's bring in so-and-so from accounting and this person who does the coding for our e-blast. People thought that was crazy. Why did they have anything to do with this? But using my leadership skills and knowing that good ideas could come from anywhere, we were able to, spitball some new campaign ideas using some of my expertise from the past to create a strong media plan, refresh some targeting, and so on and so forth. We were able to successfully increase revenue 17% year over year from the prior engagement, and it was the most successful Sesame Street Live run that the tour had seen at one of the MSG venues. And so all of this to say is that good ideas can come from anywhere, and people, who aren't so close to the brand or how things have been done in the past can really help come up with fresh inspiration and highlight leadership.
So we like to say every time anyone graduates from Michigan, congratulations, you're joining the biggest alumni network in the world, which is true. So, but can you, Jamie, share a time when your network played a crucial role in your career?
Definitely. My network has played a critical role in my career throughout my career. But one time specifically was when I started at E1 doing marketing for Peppa Pig. And a lot of people talk about using your network to get a job, right? You're looking for a job, you're on LinkedIn. I want to tell you about an experience when I already had the job and how I leveraged my network. So if you're not familiar with Peppa, big in the preschool space, came UK brand, really big there, but we were celebrating 10-year anniversary in the US for Peppa. And it was some really exciting new content coming in. Peppa was traveling to the States for the first time on the TV show. And specifically, Peppa was coming to New York. And I said, wow, what a great opportunity to do some New York activations and really get some attention on the brand. Now, luckily, I had experience doing local media activations because I used to do marketing for Broadway shows. So I was able to tap into my network. I went to my former ad agency, Sereno Coin, marketing for Broadway shows, and some vendor partners that I used to use to do local New York City marketing because that's who we were targeting when we were working on live events in New York City. And so I was able to tap in to big bus tours, if you're familiar with the double-decker buses. They're in a lot of cities. And what a cool thing. We were able to have a bright pink Peppa bus running around Manhattan that, served as this billboard for the brand. But what a way to get the brand noticed. This had never been done before. If you were on the bus, channel 1's English, channel 2's Spanish, channel 5, it was Peppa. And so, we were able to play the new cast album, have some activities on board for the kids, Peppa ears. And so all this was able to tap into my network because even after I left the previous job, this wasn't the last job I had just been to. This was a few jobs ago. I made sure to remain close with my former colleagues, catch up with them whenever possible. And that way, when I did need them, I hadn't burned any bridges. And I was able to say, hey, can you help me out? Can you connect me with this person, this thing? Remember when we did that? And, all of that to say, you'd be surprised, even though I had switched industries, everyone is connected. Everyone knows everyone. And it's just really important to know that someone comes to you for help them. You'll never know how it's going to come back, right? The power of reciprocity. So this was a prime example of how I was able to tap into my network to help me look like a superstar in my new role. And that was really exciting and a really proud moment.
Thank you. Great story. Andre, how about you and using networks? Has that been critical in your success?
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo a lot of the comments that Jamie made. I would tell you that first off, and you mentioned this, but you quickly realize how small the world is at this level of business once you get out there. And so your reputation and the quality of your work travels at the speed of light in this network. And depending on how great those things are, I think will determine how vast your network is. And I want to talk a minute about what networking is not, because the worst thing you could do is just know people, and then when you need something, call them up and say, hey, can you give me this thing? No one will help you. Because the very first rule in networking is you're not there to get anything from anybody. You're there to offer yourself to them. And you're planting seeds, and you have no idea where it's going to go. But at some point, it may come back in the world and benefit you. But I think you need to go into networking with the notion that I'm not looking to get anything from this. I'm just looking to help as many people as I can. And I would tell you that that's benefited me greatly. So the other thing is, and you mentioned this as well, is that there's a network outside of your company or organization or wherever you work, and there's a network inside of it. And you have to be very good at navigating both of those things. And I think when you do that, you'll find that opportunities just come to you. So it's being open, offering yourself with nothing in return, and things come to you. So I sit on the board of a public company. I sit on 2 nonprofit boards. Very happy to be on all of those. I didn't ask for any of those positions, or I didn't seek any of them out. They all came to me, and they all came to me because of my network and because of the reputation that I had established beforehand. So it is a powerful, powerful component of your professional life, and you need to approach it in the right manner.
Yeah. Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, said the same thing. She said, you want to build your network before you need it.
That's right.
You know, so it might be there. So André, another thing that you've talked about that I love is resilience and empathy being these important attributes of a leader in your professional life and with your team. Can you sort of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, and they may seem opposing kind of principles, but they actually, I think, different sides of the same coin. So we'll talk about empathy first and foremost. I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned as a leader was the importance of having empathy for the folks that were working on my team versus being driven solely by results. And so when I was a young leader, there's an example that sticks out to me. I had a person on my team, a woman who would always bring her emotional dealings to work. And I never wanted to talk about those things. She had things she was dealing with in her family that always kind of irritated me. Just to be honest with you. But one day I decided—
Maybe not his best moment.
Not my best moment. This is we're all here to learn, right? We're all sharing stories. But one day I decided to, listen to her earnestly. And I was able to offer some help and some advice. And she said something like, you should do more of this. You're an incredible leader when you help people in this way. And that really stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And I started doing that. And what I realized was ultimately that you can't divorce the person from the work. They're all a complete package. And if you're going to have a successful team, a high-performing team, you need to be able to incorporate elements of that. Now, that goes to a certain extent, right? Because there is still the notion of accountability within that empathy. But you got to be able to help people live their lives and live their purpose. And you got to find a way to do that as a leader. I think the resilience piece comes in because what we do every day, if you're a leader in any field, is just difficult. You're going to reach moments where it's just really hard and it's challenging. And I can tell you that there are times where I've been in business where it just looks like there's no end to it. It's just dark, and I don't know if we're going to win. Mm-hmm. But you keep going, and actually you wind up winning. And that's the greatest feeling in the world. But you need that resilience to be able to get there. And so what we've talked about was, I think the idea of resilience, the notion of it, you can build that in your life. If you don't have that today, you can start somewhere. Whether it's exercising or running, if you don't run, all right, maybe set a goal for yourself of 1 mile, then 2 miles. There are ways to do it. If you start to embed principles of resiliency in your everyday, you'll see it start to permeate your existence and the thing that you do professionally. And I've found that that's worked for me. But I constantly push that. I'm constantly throttling that. How do I continue to build resiliency? And how do I build it with my team? Because it's one thing to be resilient as an individual, but how do you build resiliency with a team? And that, for me, has been discussions around what are we challenging, what are we facing as a challenge? How do we deal with it together? What are the issues that you have? And this is where the empathy comes back in play. What issues are you dealing with? How can I help you get through that? So how can we be better as a team? But it's really, really important that you have both of those things, I think, as a leader today.
Most people don't know, but resilience also has a verb form, to resile. So how can we resile better as a team? Jamie, do you have one specific takeaway to share with the audience on this one?
Definitely. I'd say incorporating empathy with my teams has meant to me, remembering the managers that I've had throughout my career, those that really stood out and did things that I knew I wanted to emulate one day, versus those that had a management style that I wasn't so fond of, and trying to avoid replicating those behaviors so that, I was putting myself in my team's shoes. I remember what it was like to be in that position and having empathy for what it was like, reporting up to so-and-so. And one of the things that I definitely would focus on in my teams specifically was work-life balance.
Yeah, I was going to go there next for either one of you, because sometimes we can be more resilient at work. There needs to be healthy rhythms at home. So how do you define work-life balance, and how has this changed over time?
I can quickly jump in that I've seen the definition of work-life balance kind of morph and evolve over the past few years, specifically with working from home, outside of the traditional workday, outside of trying to make time for your personal life, your family, your friends, yourself, exercise, some of your passions, creativity. I'd say that there have been ways that, as long as you're attending the mandatory meetings that you need to be in it during the traditional, let's call it 9 to 6 hours, you can find pockets to do the work. And as long as you get your work done, that there's your work-life balance. Oh, you need to pick up your kids at 4 o'clock, so you sign off a little early, you sign back on after you put them to bed. You want to take a workout class, your favorite instructor is at 8 a.m. Again, as long as you're not missing a meeting, maybe you sign on a little early that day, answer some emails, go take that spin class, and then you're feeling good to tackle the rest of your day.
Nice. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because work-life balance means different things to different people. I think the first thing is you have to be honest with yourself about what are you obligated to, right? And what I mean by that is, a lot of us, when you come out of this institution, you'll have jobs with a lot of responsibilities. Some of these jobs are not 40-hour-a-week jobs. There's 60, 70, 80-hour-a-week jobs. There was actually an article in the Wall Street Journal just a couple of days ago about traders or investment bankers on the street, and they were trying to cap their hours at 80 hours. Like 80 hours, right? And that was the expectation. So the reason I say this is because if you think you're going to go into an investment banking job working 40 hours, you can forget about it. So your notion of work-life balance becomes skewed. So for me, it's really about being honest around what are your obligations and signing up for that. I've had people that have worked with me on my team that come in and say, oh, we're working so hard. It's just, that's the job. Yeah. You have to sign up for that. So once you are honest with yourself about that, then you got to think about, okay, how do you get that balance? I probably work on average 60 to 70 hours a week myself. And that's okay with me. I don't mind it. But there are moments that I have to own that are about replenishing my spirit, my mind, my body, my spirit. It's really important. So I like to work out. I like to spend time with friends, and I have those hours. And as long as I get that in, it allows me to be resilient. It allows me to stay restored. But I make time for those things. And I think one of the mistakes I see junior leaders making, especially when they come right out of an institution such as University of Michigan, is that, we're all type A, we all want to be successful, and everybody's working super, super hard to try and get there. But you can burn out very quickly if you don't manage your energy. So work-life balance is important, but it doesn't mean you work 40 hours a week and then I'm spending 40 hours a week at home. You got to find the right level of balance for your obligation, if that makes sense.
And what works for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so Jamie, you have talked about focusing on the whole person. Can you talk about what that is and why it has been part of your success?
Definitely. And Sue, your book, The Power of Flexing, talking about doing small experiments to create big growth. I see now that I actually was working with that concept and learned the benefits of being flexible and power flexing without even knowing the concept yet and the background of it all. So while you might hear people talk about being flexible so that you can work work with various personalities on your own team, it definitely goes beyond that in the corporate world. And in the workplace, I've seen how sometimes various departments, they might work in silos or they can be at odds with one another. So as a member of the marketing team, there have been numerous times where there was tension between us and the creatives. And maybe it's because we think a little differently or function a little differently. But at the end of the day, we all had a job to do and all had a similar goal in mind for our company. And among many things, my job was to stick to the timelines, made sure that important deadlines were met for the creative that I needed. And sometimes I had to do a lot of hand-holding to get us there. And it's very easy to get caught up in the deadlines, right? And it's definitely happened to me. Sometimes that would backfire and the creative team would be a little resentful of the marketing team. And after noticing this, I thought about a way to do an experiment where see how can the marketing team and me personally engage with the creative team a little bit differently. And so instead of, we tried just going to the creative team and saying, hey, I need X by Y date. Take a step back and remember that you're talking to a human. You're talking to a person who, has their own stuff going on, whether it's personal or professional and things that they need to get done. And so instead of just coming right out with a request, let's chit chat a little bit. How are you doing? Oh, you told me you just were taking this big trip. How'd that go? Oh, I know you were really nervous about this presentation that you were going to give. How did that go? And that gets you a long way. Remembering that, you're dealing with, a whole person who has things going on, and definitely by acknowledging that has gotten me further with them. And so it might sound obvious, but it's not always the case in practice, but people are more willing to help you when you treat them with respect. And knowing that you're working with a whole person, they're not just the task at hand or, the position that they hold. That goes a long way. And so sometimes when you have those crazy last minute needs, someone is going to be more willing to help you because, you have a respectful rapport with them. And marketing, it's important. But at the end of the day, it's also good to remember to ground us. We're not a surgeon in the operating room, and we're not a scientist curing cancer. So sometimes, even though there are marketing emergencies, there's a PR scandal, or you have a print deadline, or this campaign, it's just like everything's riding on this campaign, a lot of the times it can wait until tomorrow. And so the person on the other end of this task, they appreciate you respecting their time. And then the next time when you really do have that hard deadline, they're willing to go all in for you to meet that deadline because you respected those boundaries a different time. And the secret to really handling all this really well is building a lot of buffer time in your timelines. But at the end of the day, just thinking about the whole person, that you bring your whole person to work, whatever's going on in your personal life, it's at work with you too.
It's striking how that's a common lesson you both, because that's where you started with your anecdote about the woman who was sharing, with you. So do you have any other thoughts, like how you balance this results and relationships? Because, we're tasked with getting things done as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think one of the things you have to be very careful of as a leader is this kind of unconscious bias that you have around folks. And what I mean by that is you might have a certain style that you like and an approach, but your style doesn't work for everyone. We do a lot of assessments, leadership assessments. You got all these personality tests, and they're meaningful because if you really listen to them, you become a better leader by flexing your leadership to the person to get the results that you need. So what do I mean by that? On my team, I have a woman who is an absolute killer with numbers. I mean, the analytics from her, I just couldn't live without her. But she is a very structured individual, and she needs that. And when there's like chaos happening around her, she just can't function. I have a creative person, to use some of your example, who, structure is just the devil, right? They can't handle it. But they have the most amazing ideas. And so how do you allow for that explosion of ideas? Because that's really important as well. And you have a person that is appreciative of structure and organization, and they have to work together. So I think as a leader, you got to be really, really good at bringing out the best of your team, allowing them to thrive in their environment. You talk about bringing the whole self. That drives the results when you can get that balance together. Yeah. And I think that comes from building trust within the team, because what you'll see start to happen is people will give someone an allowance, right? So the data woman will say, okay, I'm going to just relax and sit back and let this explosion happen for 30 minutes. It can't go on and on. She wouldn't survive. And then the creative person, once we start talking numbers, okay, maybe they stay in there for a little bit and then they go get coffee or something. So you got to figure out how to manage it. But I found that just being very attuned to who that individual person is, and I'm talking about my direct reports, right? So if every leader did this with their direct team, you start to see the results. But you really want to understand intimately who they are, how to get the best out of them, and then have them work together as a team. And if they all understand, oh, that's how that person is, this is how that person is, we start to become a very high-performing team, and we start to give each other margin. And that's when I see the magic start to come together and you get the results out of it.
Yeah. I think it also comes from recognizing that there are some predictable tensions.
Yeah.
We teach our students what we call the Michigan model of leadership. I'm not sure it was around in your guys' day, but it basically argues that there's always a tension between those highly creative types and the structured types. And then there's another tension between the kind of touchy-feely types and the drivers, and those are always going to be there. And then it's how do you balance out that? So we're getting close to your questions. I'm going to ask you guys to be really short in these answers, then we'll do a lightning round. So in this answer, we have students here who are just deciding where to go in their careers, and we have alumni that are deep in their careers looking to advance. What's your best piece of advice that you haven't shared yet that you'd like our audience to walk away with today?
I'd say, as a leader and a manager, when your team shines, you shine. And it's one of my favorite things that a really great manager taught me. She never took credit for the success and the wins of our team, but rather always highlighted her team, myself included, and it was win-win, right? I felt good about it. We were celebrating the wins in a public forum, but then she looked good in turn, because if her team was doing well, it was clear that obviously she was doing a good job at being that leader.
Thank you. Yeah. Andre?
Yeah, I would tell you that this is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And sometimes we can become disappointed in our careers if we don't get that job right out of business school that we really wanted. Things change all the time. And I think you need to give yourself some allowance, give yourself some grace, be patient, stick to it. Ultimately, these things will happen for you if you are persistent. But I think patience is a big deal in business. And you just got to wait for that opportunity for yourself.
Nice. Okay, lightning round. One word or one sentence. Favorite place to eat in Ann Arbor?
No tie.
This is embarrassing. Taco Bell when I was here. I haven't had Taco Bell in many years, but it's what I ate when I was in business school. It's fast and it tasted good.
And if you guys don't know, no tie is called no tie because the founders named it that. There was no tie on campus. So they named it no tie because there was no tie. And now I just looked on Google Maps to see where I was going after this to get no tie. And there's so many locations now.
Yeah, very good. Best memory from your time at Ross, one sentence.
When this building first opened, it was my senior year. I'll never forget. That was really exciting.
Yeah.
I love the business case competitions. I was a bit nerdy when I was here, so I love the competitions.
All that tacos, all those tacos.
Yes.
Okay, favorite professor or class?
Finance, believe it or not, it's very important when you're running a P&L, obviously, and I still use the weighted average cost of capital to determine NPV of projects.
We just went nerd there. And favorite, what was the professor? Do you remember? Because we
Oh my
like
God, he
it if
would
you
kill me
remember.
if I can't remember the name
Darn
right now.
it. Okay, favorite professor or class?
Okay, well, I got to give a shout out, Marketing 325, Professor Sriram, and also Professor Wayne Baker, who's no longer at the university, but in management and organizations. He honed in on the power of reciprocity, and that has stuck with me for life.
Nice, okay. Why do you choose to stay involved with Ross as an alum?
It's hard to say that in one word, but you know,
You have a sentence.
Okay, this is going to be a run-on sentence. This institution has done so much for me personally, professionally, and it is an incredible institution in the world. I just want to be part of that story. I want to continue the great legacy that we have here, and anything that I can do to contribute to the success of the students, the school, the faculty. I'm just all in on that. So
Beautiful.
So it's going to be longer than a sentence. I always will remember the immense joy that I felt that when I found out I was accepted into Ross. At the time, it wasn't a 4-year school yet, so I was actually a freshman going to be a sophomore. And I am just so proud of the foundation it has helped lay for my career. And it has helped propel me forward from using the career resources. Don't forget, there's great resources to fund alumni events. I'm in the New York City market. I go to the events. It's really great. And we have such a special network. It's really helped make the large university feel like a small community. So go Blue.
All right, one more before we turn it over to you. Maize or blue? Maize?
yes.
Maize. Going with maize. Maize or blue?
Blue.
Gotta go blue. All right, so questions from y'all. Yeah, they're gonna bring mics.
Yes, we have mics for you and in the balcony as well.
André, Jamie, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your experience with everyone. My name is Annie Wang, BBA 23. So as a recent grad, I think I'm really interested in you both having pivoted so much in your lives and gone through so many different eras of your identity. I think I'm currently kind of going through a identity crisis. So I would love to hear any advice or lessons that you've learned in how you navigated each change that you've experienced and how you shifted your leadership styles along with that evolution.
I can jump in quickly. Before I tackle leadership, I'd say one thing that I noticed is that I would do a really good job and be excited to go to work when I was passionate about what I was working on. And so I started my career on the agency side in client services. And I quickly realized that it wasn't so fulfilling, but if I could figure out a way to combine my personal passion with my professional passion for marketing, that would be golden. And so one of my favorite things happens to be Broadway, and I was able to land a gig doing marketing for Broadway shows. And that's really when I was able to shine. I was able to take my experiences that I did learn from other, media agencies, consulting firms, and apply it to this new role that was really exciting. And then because I was so passionate about what I was doing, I naturally was able to become the leader and figuring out a path. I mean, I didn't know when I graduated what I'd be doing 15 years from then. So it's okay not to know, but you kind of just see where it takes you. I went from live events, and then I noticed a trend. I was focused on family entertainment and the children's aspect, but I didn't want to pigeon myself in live events. There wasn't that much room for growth I was seeing slowly. So I said, okay, how can I pivot and maybe focus on, instead of live events industry, the children's industry? And it's okay, you can switch industries. All your skills are going to be transferable. And you build your leadership skills that way as you go.
One of the best advice I got was from one of our deans, Joe White. Many of you maybe remember him. And he said, it's easier to steer a car that's moving than one that's standing still. So start doing something and then do this pivoting she describes. Andre?
Yeah, I think for me, it always starts with a vision of where I want to be. I want to go there. And there are two things that drive me there. One is, what kind of experience set am I getting? That's going to help me get there. And then what are my values, right? So I always align with those two things. I can't be in organizations that don't align with my values. And I have to always be getting those experiences that are going to help me progress throughout my career. So every move that I've made, I make through those lenses. And I would say there's also an element of just, practicality, market value. You can't jump from place to place to place to place to place. If you're somewhere for a year, I've been on average at a company for, I'd say 5 to 6 years on average. But you got to be careful in your career to keep moving around. Maybe it'll pay off at some point. But traditionally, if you go into a traditional organization, they don't like to see a year here, a year there, a year here. At some point, it just feels like this person has no commitment. They can't be consistent. Are they going to be a team player? So you got to think about that. But for me, it's really about values and experience that I'm getting that's going to help me get to where I ultimately want to be.
So helpful.
Questions?
Thank you both.
So I'm going to pick on Andre for...
It's my teammate here, my section mate.
I think we were on the same map.
That's right, we were. We absolutely were.
Together, so thank you for representing Section 5.
Yes.
Question, I might pick on Andre for this one, but something that you didn't expect to be doing today when you graduated 25 years ago.
Wow, that's a really good one that I didn't expect to be doing. That's a really good one, actually. I would tell you that I didn't expect, this is actually a good one. I didn't expect, when I came out of Michigan, it was all about business for me. And I never really connected some of the dots that are there. But I've had the opportunity to engage with heads of state. Queen Elizabeth, for example. I had dinner with Kamala Harris a couple months ago. I would tell you that business plays such a fundamental role in everyone's lives. It's really presented me with opportunities that I couldn't have imagined. And it makes me think about what value I'm leaving on the table and how I can actually use my platform for bigger influence outside of the business. So it's really expanded my thinking around what's possible if you're a business leader, especially coming from an institution like this.
Oh, beautiful. Other questions? Let's see a hand way in the back. And is Brooke going? Okay.
Hello, I'm Kaya Tolu, and I first want to echo my appreciation for the insight and techniques that you passed on to us today. I actually have a question. A lot of themes were touched on during this discussion of pivoting and leading a team. And I was wondering, you just said it's good to move around and be fluid in your career. I was wondering how you as leaders guide yourselves to kind of have that big picture in mind within your careers, because especially as students, we always encounter that deadline, the day by day, the week by week. How do you keep that bigger picture in mind to move forward and ensure that you achieve your ambitions?
Yeah, sure. For me, I don't know. I was raised that way. I just was born that way. Ever since I was a kid, I loved business. I always had some hustle. I used to sell stuff and resell it and I was always doing it. So business for me was always the thing. And I always wanted to run a company at a high level. So it was never hard for me to keep that front and center. What I will tell you is that there are moments when I take an inventory of what am I doing here? what am I actually learning? What kind of value is being given to me in this position? So there are moments in corporate America where you can get into, you're actually not learning anything. You're in meetings 24 hours a day, and you're just managing people's personalities. Those environments I absolutely hate. Mm-hmm. And that's when I say I have to get out, because I'm just becoming a nub. I'm not being sharp. I'm not being challenged. There's no innovation. I leave those kinds of situations. So that, for me, I keep front and center, because it's always about how am I progressing? What am I learning? Am I being better? And if it's just kind of managing people's attitudes on the day, I'm just not in for that. So you have to be, again, I told you, values driven, and the experiences that I'm getting, you got to know what those things are for yourself, and you have to keep that in your frame.
I echo a lot of the same sentiments, and I'd also just highlight, being willing to be flexible, and knowing that you're one place today, but that could change. And I'd say, in your role, are you doing things that excite you? And are exactly what André was saying, are you learning? And when I was studying here, I actually thought I was going to go into finance because I was really good at numbers, and I did well on all the tests. And I took marketing classes because they were fun for me, and I have the creative side. And I took the internship in finance, and then I quickly realized actually finance wasn't for me. At first I was, how could I graduate and not know what I'm doing? I'm going to switch to marketing. But because I was flexible and allowed myself to then explore the marketing career, I'm so glad I did, because then I was able to find roles where I could tap into a lot of my strengths. So I worked at a consulting firm where I did market research and data analytics. So I had my numbers fixed. I got that on a day-to-day, and then I would work for clients and, give recommendations on how they could better their media plans based on the research that we performed on how their campaigns did. And I was able to use the data to tell a story, make the recommendations, and quickly realized, I get creative to help them with their campaigns. And then that led me to, actually, maybe I want to be at the advertising agency. I don't want to just be giving the recommendations. I want to be the one, getting that information and then doing something with it. And so if you allow yourself to be flexible, you'll find a way to keep doing what you love.
If it's a short one, we have time for one more question. I see a hand right here.
In the corporate America world, I find your leadership style so generous and collaborative. How does it work if there are companies that operate in a different model, authoritarian, top-down management style? Does it work there as well, and are those companies still functioning that way?
Yes. Oh, that's such a great question, because I have been in organizations where that is the case. And what I would tell you is that in those instances, for me, as a leader, it's like a dome shield. You have to absorb all of that, because you don't want that culture permeating your team if you don't believe in that culture, and I don't, right? It's so you have to take a lot of that on and try and protect your team from it as much as possible. What I always tell my team is that we're responsible for our own destiny, right? There's a lot going on around us. We have to deliver what the company wants, but they're not in our shorts on everything, right? There are things that we can model, behaviors that we can exhibit that will drive that type of culture within our team. And that's what we focus on.
Do you see them changing then?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because again, if it's coming top down and I'm getting it from my CEO, the C-suite, the board, I can deal with that. And that's typically the interface, right? I don't have my team being exposed to that because I'm taking that on. But I don't want to pass those bad behaviors down. I mean, stuff rolls downhill. And I think if you're not conscious about that as a leader, it can permeate your team. But if you're very, very conscious of it and you say, look, I don't want that for my team. I don't want that kind of culture. This is what I believe is going to make us a high-performing team. You have to hold the line on that. And that can be a heavy burden. But if you are committed to that, and if you truly believe in it, you're going to do it. And that's how it's been for me. And I think that's an excellent question, actually.
Very consistent with the research, which finds that the perception, any employee's perception of organizational culture is driven by his or her supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
People work for
primarily
people.
people work for people. I think that's all we have. We have a few words from our dean.
Hi. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello,
and I just
Dean.
wanted to say a huge thank you to Sue, André, and Jamie. I know everyone here learned a lot from the conversation. I really enjoyed hearing your reflections on leadership and also especially enjoyed your reflections on your time at Ross. That was really very fun. And this is a particularly special event because it's our reunion as well as featuring our dialogue series that the Sanger Leadership Center puts on. So for those of you who might not know as much about Sanger, they're a true hub of excellence that brings together research and action-based learning. They do just a tremendous job for us here at the Ross School, and it's something that we're very proud of. And as you can see, those reflections on leadership and how you move forward with your careers are really important in terms of your satisfaction with your professional lives and moving forward from there. I hope you all enjoyed this time together. The other thing that we care a lot about at the Ross School is building community, and the Sanger Center does a fantastic job of that, and you're evidence of that. You know, we really appreciate having our alumni and our students come together. So I hope you really enjoy the rest of your time here. For those of you who are alums, you can stay in this room. We have our alumni award ceremony coming up right afterwards. But another round of applause for Sue, André, and Jamie. Thank you, and go blue.
Go blue.